Hello, everybody. Sorry for the wait. We were apparently starting up the Matrix here. But we are live. And thanks, everybody, tuning in. And for the whole TAO community as well, jumping on all the X feed and so on. And for, of course, our shareholders tuning in to learn a little bit about Bittensor. We have an amazing a bit of content for you today. We have some of the top leading subnets that we'll present and we'll do Q&A with. And then, of course, we have the quarterly report with our CEO and our head of finance and the questions from the analysts. So to start off with the journey for Bittensor for myself, it started actually with an event that we threw that's called Safello Signal, which was half a year ago. And it was somebody in the audience that said, "Hey, Frank, have you thought about decentralized artificial intelligence?" And I said, "Of course I have." And it's like, "All right, do you know about Bittensor?" It's like, "Of course I have not." Now, of course, just to go full circle, I wanted to invite Elias to give us the primer on what is Bittensor. Elias, join, please.
Good day.
Good day. Yeah, I need to move over.
I was told I should sit here.
This is all impromptu.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. And I guess I'm the reason Bittensor came into your life. And so I want to preface this. I'm not the biggest Bittensor nerd. There's going to be a ton of really, really, really amazing speakers coming that know way, way more than me. But I have the nice job of now just giving you a little introduction to the viewers out there to Bittensor, kind of the 5-minute pitch or 3-minute pitch that I gave to Frank all these months ago at this point.
Yes, it's only months, but that's kind of the pace that this industry is moving. Is exactly what we want to see.
Exactly. And so
the floor is yours.
I'm going to, see if the clicker works. Okay. I was thinking, how do I explain Bittensor to someone that maybe isn't super AI native or even crypto native? And so my sort of analogy I came up with is that I would call Bittensor a decentralized conglomerate. You can think about it in a similar way as you would think about Alphabet, right? Alphabet owns a lot of different subsidiaries: Google, YouTube, Waymo, GCP, Google Cloud Platform. Within those, you have departments and managers that then manage employees that do the work. And in my mind, that maps very well to how Bittensor works. Bittensor, the blockchain, is sort of the holding company, the overarching infrastructure that holds it all together. Each of the subnets in Bittensor is basically a subsidiary, a sort of independently run company. The validators in those subnets are similar to the managers. They give out work orders, they check work quality, and the miners do the actual work.
You're applying the org chart to Bittensor. It's a smart move.
Exactly. Okay. And we'll talk a bit more about what all of these terms actually mean, and there's time for Q&A. So we can dumb it down or maybe smart it up. I don't know about the smarting.
Depends who's asking questions.
Exactly. So concretely, how does this look like? What are these sort of subsidiaries that you can find in Bittensor? And Frank already mentioned a lot of this is around AI. There are sort of financial modeling systems that are running. One of those, Subnet 50, Synth Data. James will speak later today or in a bit. There's a ton of AI inference, pre-training, data, fine-tuning, protein folding. We're going to have Zach from Macrocosmos here. They run, 5 subnets, 1, 9, 13, 25, 37. You notice all of these subnets have numbers. They also have other symbols attached to them, but we don't have to. Yes. There's cybersecurity, Bitcoin mining, drug discovery. And so what sort of becomes clear here is that it's not necessarily only about AI exclusively, but Bittensor is a blockchain or an open source platform that allows you to do computational work in a decentralized way. And that might be AI, but that might also be something like, for example, Bitcoin mining.
Who we have JJ joining, who will talk about that with TAO Hash.
Yes, which is one of the fastest rising sort of subnets over the past months. Incredible story. So we'll hopefully hear a bit about that.
Yeah.
And so this sort of computational work can be, like we talked about AI, it can be any sort of other compute power around what you'd find in AWS or sort of storage systems. It can be things around protein folding or molecule discovery. It can be financial market prediction. The sort of sky is really the limit. Each of those types of work are then organized within these subnets. And again, subnets is in a way a company in and of itself that sits underneath the Bittensor conglomerate. And within that subnet,
I don't know how much the TAO community would like the word conglomerate, but let's run with it.
It's yes, we can. I've had a long discussion with AI whether it's a good analogy or not, and we can, but it's within the sort of umbrella organization, Bittensor, and within each of those subnets, you have miners doing the actual work and validators who give out the work orders and then judge the work, and then everyone is rewarded in TAO, the native token of Bittensor, based on their contribution and the value of their contribution to the network in general. This is sort of...
this is the org chart.
Exactly. Yes. This is the org chart straight from the Bittensor docs. And so just to see here again, you have...
This helps with institutional investors. It's like, kind of recognize this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this basically looks like Alphabet, I guess, right? Or something.
Don't know about that.
But
maybe the form they're moving into now.
Exactly. And so you see at the very top, and this is, I would assume, intentional, you have the people doing the work, the miners. There's a sort of incentive mechanism, it's called, in Bittensor, that handles the compensation, which is sort of between the validators and the miners. You have the validators that, again, work orders and quality control. And then all of this is sort of enabled and wrapped by the Bittensor blockchain. And then just as a last sort of note at the end.
And a very important one.
A very important one. There has been a big change around, 90, 100 days ago, roughly. Is the introduction of DTAO, dynamic TAO. And now we're going deep into the crypto lingo.
Yeah, we're already in the matrix, so we might as well go deep.
Might as well. Those are, what DTAO introduced is a way to have a more market-driven method to determining which subnet actually contributes meaningful value to the Bittensor blockchain. And so essentially, DTAO introduces so-called alpha tokens. I think the first subnet would be called alpha, the second one beta, etc. Right? So we just call it alpha tokens because we didn't want to learn Greek, I guess. Can't expect people to learn the Greek alphabet. But so we call them alpha tokens, and that allows people that hold TAO to stake in or invest in specific subnets and basically buy the alpha token of a specific subnet. And this is then used as a signal to show whether or not the value the subnet produces is considered meaningful within the Bittensor network, and the TAO emissions that the network produces are going to be distributed based on the relative market capitalization of the subnets.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. Just a few very complex mathematical formulas you can read about in the white paper.
And I guess the interesting transition there, which was with kind of needed before, it was not really a democratized system where the distribution was kind of decided, by a couple of people, but now it's the crowd, if you will, that decide, okay, which subnet is doing valuable work in the Bittensor network.
There's more of an open marketplace now. Before that, it depended a lot on the validators in the sort of now called root network, I guess, the blockchain itself.
Yes.
That would determine how much distributions go to each subnet.
So if we make comparisons with the other blockchains people might be familiar with, how would it compare to, let's say, Ethereum, where people are familiar with layer 1 and then you invest in layer 2s, but that's not really interconnected with Ethereum in the same way that TAO and the underlying subnet tokens are, right?
Yeah. I don't, I think you could think about alpha tokens as sort of ERC20 contracts, sort of tokens on top of Ethereum.
Yeah.
There's maybe a stronger correlation between the value of TAO and the alpha tokens, and they're sort of linked together a bit more tightly than if you have like a wrapped Bitcoin or wrapped Solana on Ethereum. But in a sense, that's I would say the relationship. And then I mean, there might be. There's really no need for sort of like an L2 native currency because I guess Bittensor is just performant enough as is, and you don't need to scale it with L2s.
So I guess where we're in time. Maybe we can put a timer up. But so what are you most excited about? Now we have over 100 subnets that came for 64 before DTAO. Now we have over 107, I believe. And the emission or the creation of new subnets goes by a rate like 1 per day. So, we might be looking at 1,000 subnets in, I guess, 900 days. And obviously we see this explosion of innovation that, for me, coming from early Bitcoin, also early Ethereum ecosystems, I kind of missed whatever was happening in Solana. I guess I felt too proud to look at whatever was going on there. But there's so much innovation there, and it's going at such a rapid pace. So, are there things that you're looking at that you're excited about, aside from what, the subnets that we'll be presenting?
Yeah. I think, in my opinion, maybe right, if everyone goes left, go right. If everyone goes right, go left. Sort of duck if they dip. I don't know. But right now the focus is very heavily on sort of AI, and I think for me, I'm a lot more interested in exploring whether there are interesting opportunities in this concept of it's generally about compute, right?
Mm-hmm.
About work that you can do with a computer, and sort of in a decentralized way sell the output of that work.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting problem space, and we're gonna have Jay on to talk about TAO Hash,
Yes.
and that's obviously an incredible success story, and so I think that's super interesting. I've read some things around, for example, storage subnets on Bittensor being more performant than things like Filecoin already, etc. Don't quote me on that, please.
Quote him. Quote is fine. We'll sort it out.
Exactly. Let's make it true.
Let's make it true.
So I think that's something that's very interesting. I think AI obviously is a very, very powerful use case. But again, I think that's sort of going to be a market that's going to get naturally saturated and very competitive.
Yeah.
And so I'm more interested in the things that aren't going to be super saturated and competitive, I guess.
Yeah, I challenged you before to ask you, like, what is a subnet you would build? And you said, like, you had to think a little bit more about that for now.
Yeah.
And we got Elias to build one. That has to happen. I guess we're changing some of the timing because of the technical delay, but are we ready to move to the subnet presentations? I'm looking there. No? All right, then we'll have to talk more about Bittensor. So, where was I going with this now? The analogies that we see in the existing decentralized markets. What kind of subnets do you see that correlate to what we see in a centralized market? And do you see anything that is effectively competing already with those centralized solutions, and to what extent? And do you have some metrics that the audience might be helpful for the audience to understand how quick this market is evolving?
Yeah. So in terms of AI inference, right, I think this is like one of those great case study use cases. You already are able to run open source models like the DeepSeek stuff at times cheaper than when it comes to buying it directly from DeepSeek themselves via API. And it's quite performant and gets a pretty good sort of token per second rate. Maybe not quite to the point as if you would have dedicated inference chips like a Grok with a Q or something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's generally the problem, right? Not everyone can push sort of 1,000 tokens a second. And so I think that's really, really fascinating that you already get products that are competitive in the marketplace, even though a lot of them are still in a sort of like beta type phase where you got to sign up to maybe see the pricing and so on.
Yeah.
But that's very interesting, I think. And so that's one example for
example. You had a comparison metric as well on the cost for compute compared to the centralized competition.
Exactly. It was exactly. I can click back. For inference, we have around 74 cents a million. This is like one of on the Targon subnet. It's the pricing that they list. Is 74 cents per million tokens versus 1 to 2 from DeepSeek.
Awesome. Right? Okay, I think we're ready for the first subnet to join, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I'm looking. Thanks so much, Elias, for introducing all of Safello to Bittensor at the early stage. And, I hope to see you back soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, time out. Welcome back. Thanks for hanging with us. And now we're going to have 4 presentations of, the leading subnets in Bittensor. And we're starting off with James Ross from Subnet 50. Hey, James, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. You have slides or you have a presentation to start off with?
Yeah, I do.
All right, the
Let me
floor is
get that up
yours.
right now. Awesome. Can everyone see this?
I can.
Um,
I'm looking at production. Uh, Everybody
cool.
and everybody sees the slides, right?
Awesome.
Ooh,
Great.
you added
I
our
can
company
jump.
name to it. Wonderful.
Yeah, custom, of course, custom made.
The floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hey, everyone. So, yeah, I'm here to talk about Synth. So, Synth is essentially an engine for predictive intelligence in finance and beyond. What does that mean? Well, Synth is looking at predictive intelligence from the perspective of forecasting. So if you think about any decision you make in crypto, finance, or anything, you need to build a mental model of the future. Retail traders often just do this in their head. They think, okay, I think Bitcoin's going to go up or it's going to go down. Pros, teams working at hedge funds, big banks, they're building out models, simulations. They might be using past data. They might be using things like different signals they expect to happen in the future. They've got like systems for this. And AIs right now are currently using some data, but really to build good predictive models of the future, they need millions of synthetic data points to train on. And that's how they become more intelligent. Historical data is not enough. There's just not enough of it. So if you think about self-driving cars, the way that you train a self-driving car, like a Tesla, is you put a load of Teslas on the road and you also have them training in synthetic environments, so these virtual worlds. So what we're doing with Synth is creating these virtual worlds of forecasted data for people to train on. So this is what the output of Synth subnets looks like. It's 100 price paths. Here you can see every individual path being generated every over 5-minute intervals across the next 24 hours. And this is constantly updating. So the miners or data scientists on Synth subnet are constantly creating all this data of where they see the price of Bitcoin going. And now they're not saying we think the price will be X. They're trying to give an expectation of future volatility, right? So they're saying we think the probability the price moves between these different bounds is this. And I just pulled this before we jumped on here. So this is fairly up to date, or it's very up to date. And you can see that the miners are saying at approximately 352 today, this is the probability distribution. So they think there's like 13% will be between like this price range, which is roughly 103, 600 and 800. And you can work out the probability distributions. Basically, this shows that synth data is super versatile. You can query it, and AIs can use a lot of these data points to create really strong predictive models. So the way this is scored, and this is like what I would say is the core innovation of Synth, is we're constantly scoring miners and data scientists using a continuous rank probability scoring system, which scores them on their predictions over time, and also on their predictions. So every 1 hour, also every 24 hours. So we very quickly get a good idea of what miners have strong models and what miners don't have strong models and are just trying to guess. So this makes the scoring system super robust and the data really strong. So far, performance has been awesome. We've seen around a 20% improvement across geometric Brownian motion, which is like the benchmark for volatility modeling. So we're super happy with that. And due to the design of Bittensor and this like really intense competition, we're seeing like continuous improvements as miners, data scientists really like improve their models on an ongoing basis. Currently on Synth, there's around $5,000 per day in alpha token that miners can get. So there's a huge incentive to create a good model and earn that alpha token. So a few use cases, this data can be used to pull things like liquidation probabilities for different price levels. So this data can be used across Binance, DYDX, We also have another project called Mode, like a DEX that people can trade on, even a Safello if you're thinking about trading there.
That was what the logo was for. Got it.
Yeah. We also have options pricing data. So you can pull different options pricing data, understand like what the AI models are predicting option prices, or what the AI models are pricing options at certain times versus like the market. So potentially there's an edge there. We have all these dashboards available on our website. And yeah, the way we're thinking about growing Synth is a new project. It's really at the cutting edge of like synthetic data generation for predictive intelligence. We've been live for roughly 3 months, and we've started to look at different routes to market. So far, we've started to sell the data into marketplaces. We created an API so that funds, exchanges can access this data. We've started to build out some consumer products like a Chrome extension and also like a ChatGPT style LLM where you can query the data. And we've also started to integrate with some AI products teams. And yes, the end goal is to have Synth moving from just BTC ETH, adding in commodities, gold, silver, oil, adding in equities indices, and then we'll start to move to new verticals and apply this synthetic forecasting data generation to energy pricing, weather, traffic, health, to give probabilistic outcomes within those industries. And yeah, end goal is that we'll have, maybe in 2026, maybe later, all these AGIs on the internet doing everything for us. And they'll be using Synth data's probabilistic models to build their view of the future. So yeah, the goal is that Synth will become this forecasting engine powered by Bittensor for AIs, LLMs across all industries.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great pitch. And so there a couple of things come to mind immediately. But you had some logos on us, companies that could potentially use this, right? So I imagine you're having these conversations with some large exchanges, but maybe also with some traditional companies, exchanges that might want to use this data. How is the response to this? And are you able to prove something, from a data-driven perspective where they say, hey, this is actually doing something that is more interesting than what we currently have in a centralized world, as an example. So I was just wondering how those conversations are going with those companies that you're engaging with.
Yeah, for sure. So in finance, as you well know, like if there's edge or alpha, people don't really want to share it, right? Like lots of hedge funds will have their own modeling teams doing this. And they probably don't want to share their models. However, projects that like maybe smaller hedge funds that are just starting to get into, for example, trading BTC options, this is like a much faster route for them to back test strategies than hiring like a whole modeling team, right, for this type of data. So they can very quickly plug in. So we're finding in traditional finance, companies which have started exploring Bitcoin, adding it to their balance sheet, looking at trading options, have been really interested in this data because it's a very quick way for them to, test strategies they're running in other markets. And kind of like essentially it speeds up them needing to do this modeling themselves. So those conversations have been positive. And crypto companies have been pretty receptive because, there's huge value in this for them and they're very used to this kind of data. But we think the big unlock will come for us when we start to add in commodities and stocks. It's just that it's a little bit harder to add these in because to score the miners and data scientists, you need to change the scoring mechanism because Bitcoin's like a 24/7 market. And these other markets have like set times that they're trading.
Okay.
So for example, they close over the weekend. So this 24-hour scoring won't necessarily work as well. So we're trying to change that right now.
Interesting. So, I mean, if we're talking about the tokenization of those stocks that follow the price, then you can use that as data input to create that product anyway, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So if we have stocks trading 24/7 via tokenization, that'd be awesome for us. That'd make it a lot easier.
All right, NASDAQ, if you're listening, Um, uh, so you touched upon, I think, Tesla and, that data and that predictability that also goes into maybe this physical AI space. I tweeted about it the other day, like which subnet is like touching the humanoid space. Do you see a position for like the physical AI space for where this can be valuable too?
So yeah, we're currently like using this synthetic data approach, and I mean we've applied it to BTC price forecasting. It made a lot of sense for us. It's an area we know. Our team have experience in crypto space, finance space, so it made a lot of sense. Also, the market's 24/7, and you can get like robust oracles and things like this, so very reliable data. So that's why it made most sense to start here. But yeah, we could potentially feed in these probabilistic models to things like traffic, weather, energy pricing is something we've been looking at pretty closely and are interested in.
Yeah, we already have a weather Zeus, at least Zeus subnet is doing weather predictions, right? But I guess
there's
so.
that's doing weather predictions.
And within even the financial part of this, I guess you have competition within Bittensor as well with Subnet. Is it 8? I believe. So how do you compare to them if we're going heads to heads with what they are doing?
Yeah, so Subnet 8 is more about like quant signals. So the output of their subnet is like a long or short like strategy. And this is like a point prediction. We're trying to focus on this like wide range of probabilistic outcomes, which enable like a lot of training data. We think that synthetic data, probabilistic data for trading is more powerful than point predictions because it's more versatile, it has more depth. And you could use synth to mine other subnets, but you can't necessarily use other subnets to mine synth. They're more like a feature of, an overall, like an individual strategy. Synth is trying to be more generalized. So I'd say those are like the core differences.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And to finish off, is there anything from the audience watching, an ask or something that you want to leave them with?
I would say just like, when you're looking at Bittensor, have a look through the project, the teams who are shipping regularly, communicating regularly, and doing kind of cool stuff at the cutting edge. And that's where I think the most exciting things are. They're not always necessarily the top subnets. There's lots of interesting stuff happening across the space. So keep digging in. Check out what people are talking about on Twitter, and I'm sure you'll find a huge amount of value. And if you ever want to chat to me about synth, then synthdata.co. You can message us on Twitter.
I tagged you in the post as well, so you can find my post text as well. Okay, thanks so much, James. Are we ready for the next subnet? Yes? Okay, we can jump right in. In out. Hello.
Hey. Hi, everyone.
Hey. Chris, yes. Oh, I thought the order was first Felix. Sorry, I'm looking at the screen from a distance. Thanks so much for joining, Chris from Macrocosmos. You have slides or available as well? Okay, off you go.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Chris Zacharia. I work for Macrocosmos. We are possibly the biggest team on Bittensor. We're 35 people. But the key founders are Stefan Cruz, who was the former CTO of Bittensor itself and creator of Subnet 1, which was the very first on the network. Will Squires, who worked with Jacob Steves, Bittensor's creator, on the update that allowed there to be multiple subnets in the first place. So I've got about 10 slides. I'm going to rattle through them pretty quickly. My background is in creative advertising, journalism, and editing. Used to write for The Guardian and The Independent here in the UK. I also worked for a number of advertising agencies as a creative strategist, and I have my own creative consultancy, communications consultancy, that has worked with Web3 businesses before. So Macrocosmos. I want to start just by talking a little bit about Bittensor, because I think this is where this is what allows us to create value. And there's a quote by Charlie Munger I really like. Maybe you already know it. Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. So I think that's really important, because essentially all organizations are attempting to incentivize behavior, whether they know it or not. And all social problems boil down to misaligned incentives in one way or another. And it's often a lack of really holistic thinking about incentives that creates that misalignment. And then we get lots of unintended consequences. What are regulations but an attempt to disincentivize? And what are businesses but an attempt to incentivize certain types of behavior so that they can produce value? Bittensor is a system for organizing that in a new way. And it's been through a number of phase shifts already. I think in the beginning, it was trying to see, can we create a powerful system for creating intelligence? When we'd proven that, and we'd proven that we could be benchmarked against the best centralized AI systems out there, it moved on to, well, can we build products on this? Can we create something useful? Finally, we need to enter a business era where it's not just about products, it's not just about designing intelligence commodities, it's about designing businesses that can thrive beyond Bittensor in the real world. And that's what will make us unstoppable. I think we're somewhere between 2 and 3 right now. I think we're actually making this transition. So I can feel the network accelerating towards becoming much more business savvy. So Macrocosmos, we operate 5 subnets, and that makes us, I think, the biggest team on Bittensor, which
including
is both
number 1, which is, a great number to have.
Right.
Simple.
It also puts a marker on your head, because Bittensor is extremely competitive, and
takes a lot to stay number 1.
Right. Yeah. So 5 subnets isn't like having 5 houses or 5 cars, right? It's not a flex of having multiple of something valuable. We're building end-to-end intelligence on chain, and our subnets represent the full tech stack for AI, but all open source, all decentralized. So we operate subnet 13, which is data collection, subnet 9, which is pre-training, subnet 37, which is fine-tuning, subnet 1, which is inference and agentic intelligence, and subnet 25, which is protein folding and decide. So we scrape the data, we can create powerful training methodologies that train powerful AI models. We can fine-tune them to different use cases. We can interface with them through chat interface and agentic intelligence on subnet 1. And then what can we actually do with this out in the real world? We can do scientific research on chain through subnet 25, which was protein folding, but it's now becoming a generalized scientific global job pool.
Mainframe.
Has
that been, I thought it was interesting you guys rebranded, but it took some time for the ecosystem to change the name on the different platforms?
That was partly with us. We wanted to let people in on what our plans were before we'd actually really executed.
Okay.
I want to see if this video plays in double speed. So at the beginning here, this is our product suite. You can think of subnets as the back end that produce commodities, but this is the front end. We can build products on that back end. So as you can see here, we've got 3 of the 5 are live. Anyone can log on and use these tools right now without knowing anything about Bittensor itself. So if I click play here, it will just quickly show you what mainframe looks like. You can see the proteins that we folded, the protein docking, the job configuration, and it's fully interactive, ready for use, and allows miners, validators, anyone who wants to submit a job to do so. So again, I don't want to spend too long on that, because I know
you guys are doing a lot to cover in 5 minutes, so it could be a whole presentation of itself. And I do think it highlights, the depth and breadth of the ecosystem. This is, you guys are representing several subnets that each of them are their own whole journey, which is amazing.
Well, this gives you an overview of what mainframe, how it's designed. Essentially, we're creating a global job pool for scientific research tasks that miners can compete to fulfill in return for TAO, but which can then be used for scientific research in the real world. We've just signed our first partnership with Rowan Scientific, a chemical computation startup in the US, and they're using mainframe, our compute, to decentralize neural network potentials and assisting chemical computation. So we also have our data scraping subnet.
That's a beautiful visualization that you guys got here.
Right?
Absolutely.
3D point cloud visualization. You can scrape any data set on social media. You can then upload it onto Nebula, get a 3D point cloud visualization, and then conduct sentiment analysis on it. We've already, since starting SN13, about a year old now, it has created the largest open source social media repository in the world with about 40 billion rows. We can basically index all of X and Reddit on any given day.
So can you comment on how that looks from a competitive point of view to centralized solution?
Absolutely. I don't know if you've tried to conduct sentiment analysis on data, but it's remarkably difficult because the companies that do it, they operate on the attract-extract model, where basically there's a really high paywall and a really high subscription, and you've got to use their tools to conduct your sentiment analysis on your data. So it's a big barrier, especially for startups, because most of them can't afford the hundreds and hundreds of pounds a month of subscription fees to gain access to a platform that would allow you to do this. Our API is very flexible. It's all open source. People can build on this, and we can help design the types of sentiment analysis and data crawlers that businesses need for their startup. And we're in the process of doing that with a number of different businesses. So what does it take to get Bittensor to a point where it goes beyond its own protocol? We need connectivity. We need to connect. We need better connections between subnets so that we can boost performance across all of them. We need deeper integration with one another so that we can help. Each subnet can help others achieve its goals. We need to stay competitive with one another. And then we need to emerge. We need to make sure that we're not just selecting for businesses that do well on Bittensor, we select businesses that will do well in the real world. So already we have our subnets are the ones at the bottom here. You can see the dotted line showing how they connect to each other. Mission Commander is our text prompting that allows you to talk to the different subnets and talk to the commodities that they produce to help you navigate them. And on the left-hand side here are the partnerships that we've either announced and are in progress or that are about to be launched between our subnets and other subnets on the network. So some of them, like SM44 Score, they do sports analytics. They're the most successful technology at predicting soccer scores in the world. Since February, they've been using SN13 Data Universe to take social media data and help their miners boost their forecasting and their predictions by using social media data to enrich their forecasting. So there's a lot of potential within Bittensor and to become Bittensor's infrastructure for different subnets. And then beyond Bittensor, we're creating products that you don't even need to know what Bittensor is in order to use them and to benefit from them. So yeah, with that said, go and play. These are all linked to our different docs, products, Substack papers, and communities. We really welcome building in public and working together with like-minded teams and people. And that openness is a big part of what makes Bittensor really successful. So yeah, thanks for listening. I'm not sure if there's time for questions, but I'm open to it if there are.
We'll have to keep it a bit shorter. But I had two questions. So I mean, you're one of the leading groups, obviously, the first in that sense as well with Subnet 1. But you have created several subnets, and there are other companies like yourselves. And at the same time, we're hearing now proposals that there will be subnets to subnets. What is your take on that? I guess you are working with the synergies across those subnets. Do you see a role, and what is your vision if the subnets were to come to fruition?
Yeah, so one way of thinking about it is that subnets are like the back end. And if a subnet is trying to achieve a goal in a different market that could benefit from agentic intelligence or data collection, we can work together to boost their performance, the performance of their subnet, which gives us a proven use case that we can go to market with. So, for example, SM44, they can predict soccer games more accurately than any other system on the planet, right? And they're getting more accurate because they're using data from SN13, because our teams are working together to plug in our API into their back end, right? So we get a strong use case out of it. They get boosted performance. And the more we can impact the real world, the better it is for all Bittensor subnets. It's like a rising tide lifting all boats. In terms of subnets within subnets, that's a new innovation that is slowly being adopted. The idea there is that you'd have multiple tasks, right? If you think of a subnet as a job, so subnet 13, its job is data collection. What if you could have multiple tasks within that job, right? With slightly different incentives, slightly different validation mechanisms, but all of which contribute to the main job, right? So it's a way of adding diversity and plurality within that job while maintaining the subnet's core integrity. So we can become the back-end infrastructure for Bittensor. We can boost other teams' performance, create use cases that prove our value, and then use those to go to market beyond Bittensor to create enterprise sales.
Awesome. I'm just looking, is there time for one more question, or do you need to round it up and move on? Okay. I'll have one quick, which I think is you guys are like doing amazing work across many fields, and you've now done the first commercial partnerships on mainframe.
That's right.
What monetization opportunities do you see? And also for the audience listening, what kind of collaborations and kind of interactions from our audience are you looking for?
Yeah, so we've achieved this just by building on Bittensor and gaining emissions from Bittensor.
Yeah.
But Bittensor is a bit like, it's very, very powerful as a way of generating funding, but it can also be thought of as a network for the incubation of other networks. It's a network that has a selective pressure to create and make compete different network designs. Each of the subnets is a different network design, and the ones that succeed rise to the top, and it creates a survival of the fittest effect, right? Now, if you succeed on Bittensor, that's great, because you make loads of emissions, you can sell the TAO, you can use that money to invest in the subnet. But how the real world works beyond Bittensor, right? So we need to make a business where we're getting revenue from real world business partnerships where we're not reliant on the token price to subsidize us, right? And to do that, you have to create a product that is reliable, that serves a real need, and that can really attract businesses who have never heard of Bittensor and don't care, right? Our partnership with Rowan Science gives them computation, not just computation, but incentivized compute to help them discover neural network potentials in computational chemistry that will allow them to contribute to new drug discovery, right? So they take care of that part of the equation. We provide them with the incentivized compute that they need at a better than market rate to conduct that computation. And they're willing to pay for it. And we're building a long-term partnership. So if we can do that with, there's no reason why we wouldn't be able to have more partnerships like that on mainframe. It's not like we've sold our capacity and that's it. There's so much more capacity in which we can devote to different types of businesses, right? So one subnet might have many different commercial partnerships for many different use cases because it's so flexible. How can one subnet do protein folding and another do soccer prediction, right? It's the same basic network, but it is so flexible and fungible, it can be made to do different things. So what we're trying to do is build long-term partnerships with real-world businesses, real-world investors who believe in this as a system for generating successful networks and intelligence commodities on top of them.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Chris, for giving this overview of everything you guys are working on. I met you guys in London, amazing team. And I hope to speak to you guys again and dive deeper into some of the things you're doing, and also tracking, where the revenue part of it is going. And I hope some of that will be also shared with people in the community, so we can have a transparent view on the economic side. I think we're moving on to Felix this time, right? Okay, Felix is ready. I'm waving to Chris, and maybe someone can put a clock timer in the background so I know actually the timing we're on. Hey, Felix.
Yeah, good morning.
Hey,
Hi,
good
David.
morning. Where are you calling in from?
Thanks for having me. I'm from Germany.
Germany. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
We have slides as well. Ready?
I have slides. Yes. I was very interested in Chris' introduction because it perfectly matches what I am going to present you right now.
Oh, perfect. That's interesting. Quite unlike other crypto ecosystems, there's actually a lot of synergies and collaboration happening between what would normally be hyper competitive. And of course, it is hyper competitive, but it's beautiful to see these collaborations, that the ones that Chris were describing. The floor is yours, Felix.
Thank you. Thank you. So, as Chris said, the next stage for Bittensor are businesses that don't rely on the incentive mechanism from Bittensor itself. It can work as an enabler or accelerator, but we, as from Shugo, we build TensorProx as guys that like living life on the edge. So we go out and build the world's first truly decentralized edge platform, that is TensorProx. So before we go into specifics, I want to introduce you in the very basic concepts of the web, or security that is a mandatory part of the web. On the left side, you see a very basic communication scheme where a node, a single being, let it be an application server, is directly linked to the World Wide Web with all its participants. And as you can tell from this architecture, 100% of all load and requests need to be handled by the application server. Application server. So that is why humanity had out and found a great architecture to deal with this, and they created the man in the middle architecture. So man in the middle, you see, it's just an additional node, a logical unit between the World Wide Web and an application server that might serve something like, as we said, prediction services, Bitcoin prices, weather, whatever there is on Bittensor and in the whole World Wide Web. There are requests going back and forth, and TensorProx aims to be a decentralized man in the middle, as all nodes in TensorProx are united into one big platform to intercept, check, and route traffic to the right direction. And in case it's malicious, we block it. So that is how we can create an always on, always available presence. And when this is solved, we can care about efficiency increase. This is not new. It's a well-known concept. So we have the challenge right now that around about 60% of all Western Hemisphere traffic is centered around three big names, namely Cloudflare, Akamai, AWS. So you, for example, Safello, thanks for giving us the stage. You run on AWS. In our perspective, it's just what do you mean?
I said you did your homework.
Yeah. I come from this field, so that is one thing in sales you need to know what's going on. Yeah. So, but we see it as just a matter of time until we experience the risk of centralization. So that is low competition, flat innovation curve, better cost performance ratio, system fragility, and policy capture risks. So from recent trade wars, crisis, you might have seen lots of insecurities coming up, and And this is faced by an always increasing attack surface. There's more and more compute in this world, so this makes the World Wide Web more and more demanding. And the man in the middle must grow even bigger to enable businesses to stay on a constant price level to make the profit they need to innovate. So TensorProx aims to be this man in the middle. And where are we? We are in the market, the global cybersecurity market. And just to give you a visual presentation, this is how 14.3% CAGR looks like in an already very big market. So the numbers, I don't know if it's very showing, the numbers here is in billions of dollars. So by 2033, the whole global cybersecurity market will have reached the size of $560 billion. So with TensorProx, we aim to capture at least 0.1% of this by 2032. So to achieve this, we need Bittensor. So that is the pressing question. Why are we running on Bittensor? So let's have in a 5 minutes time, let's name the three most important ones. Bittensor is an enabler. I just used a quote from Konst, co-founder of Bittensor. Don't hire, incentivize. Chris already mentioned it. We do that. We are continuously onboarding cybersecurity professionals to compete in our subnet. And that is the second part. It's a meritocratic system. We have competition from day zero. The only, the only thing that we need to do is we need to shape competition in the way so the collaborative intelligence that also is channeled in Bittensor brings out the very best of what humans can do. Humans are awesome. Every day you open Discord, you find someone that comes up with a genius idea to a problem that is a challenge in Bittensor, and we are very happy to be a part of it. So let's name these three as main arguments for why Bittensor. And with these values, what are we doing specifically with TensorProx? To put it short, in those 5 minutes, we are nothing less than the decentralized layer zero of web computing. So we work as an aggregator. We bring the stage and not the show. We make sure everything runs in an aggregated way. With that, we can lower the cost for any client. May it be a Bittensor subnet, may it be a miner, may it be a validator, may it be a huge business that is serving other reasons in this on this planet. May it be whole states. We can aggregate all man-in-the-middle outputs, lower the costs, and incentivize the skills that are needed to enable this. And we are permissionless. Bittensor is permissionless. It's borderless. So if one country chooses to fence its services, we as the governors of this layer zero will make sure that clients get an uninterrupted service no matter what. And by that we can decentralize the centralized part and scale up. Just imagine in end stage, there is one UID is as much as a centralized entity on this planet can funnel or provide as performance. And we have 256 UIDs. So one service per UID. Good. So that is our cause. We are working on this every day. You can join the journey. We are one of the, you can see Subnet 91. We are one of the more newest ones, but we want to make the combination of Bittensor to the real world. So you can see, you can find us on any channel that matters, and we will also be part of Proof of Token. in Paris. And those that want to dive deep into what we are looking for, a reference white paper will be published within the next weeks.
Thank you so much, Felix. And so 0.1% of the 2032, did you say, Kager? Where are you guys now in terms of size and adoption and what you're seeing in response from the market to what you guys are doing?
Currently, we are in a laboratory stage.
Yes.
So we focus on one of the most pressing topics in Bittensor to enable stable performance generation, and that is we call it DDoS attacks. It's a distributed denial of service where servers are flooded with requests. And we want to make sure that we bring the service to safeguard nodes from this attack. So we grow, we start with this single service and then we put it out. So for now, there is no productive platform yet. That is what we are working on.
Okay.
While we keep our miners busy with challenges coming up.
Okay.
Because when we start, we need to be a force to reckon with to build the trust needed.
So you're basically going head to head with Cloudflare in that case?
You might think so, but if we want to scale, it is very hard. In the end, we can enable miners to consume Cloudflare performance and provide it to the subnet. So they are more granular in their output than, let's say, the service that I was talking about on Cloudflare, for example. You need 1 year contract, okay? At least 1 year. There's nothing less.
Understood.
But perhaps the dynamic nature of Bittensor, it requires more granular performance intervals. And if a miner is clever, he just connects the output from Cloudflare or Akamai or whatever, and provides it in our subnet. And others might think it's more beneficial to create their own infrastructure, and the classic make or buy decision is what we enable. So we collaborate and empower centralized entities.
Yes. Hopefully you can answer quickly, and then that's the final question because we're out of over time. But is there an advantage in terms of how you guys are building it in terms of the adaptability to the types of attacks that you would typically get from a DDoS? Because that maybe through the process of how you guys are building it, it actually is more adaptive than maybe Cloudflare is a centralized entity. And then finally, what is your ask from the audience tuning in?
For now, as we are not going to stop in DDoS, and let's say DDoS is not rocket science, our goal is not to provide the very, very best solution, but we want to make sure that the very best solution is rooted to the client. So we benchmark, control, we audit, and for that reason, we can say, okay, you're looking for this service, take this node.
Okay.
That is what we provide. It's a form of intelligence output with a product behind.
And your ask to the audience?
Any ask to the audience?
Or final comments?
Stay tuned. Every day is different, and especially in Bittensor, it's moving very fast. The next time we talk, we can talk about the product.
Oh, perfect. Thanks so much, Felix, for giving a first look at what you guys are building in the lab there.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Which leads us to the final, and not whatever. Keep the best for last, as one would say. Joseph from Subnet 14 and 5, and Subnet 14 obviously has gone to the stratosphere. Is the fastest growing subnet of the last. You've only been around, I think, with that one for 2 weeks, but it's been one hell of a ride, Joseph, right?
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining.
I appreciate kind words. It's the wee hours of the morning for me
Oh
in
my God,
California.
so
So
sorry. We'll
I
try to
might be a little bit slow.
we'll try to align it with the US time zone if we do this when we do this next time. The
No
floor
problem.
is
Thank you for
yours.
having me. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's exciting to see the work that your company's doing in developing a TAO holdings position on your balance sheet. I think many more public companies will follow your lead and learn from what you're doing and your conviction. Yeah, so my name is Joseph Jacks. A lot of people call me JJ,
It's a good one.
and I've been involved in Bittensor for a couple of years now. I learned about it in early 2023. So relatively early, but not nearly as early as many people that I've had the pleasure to meet in the community. And prior to really spending a very substantial amount of my time on Bittensor, quite recently actually started a company around it in December last year. I've actually largely and continue to be focused on investing and building open source companies. So in case your audience is not familiar with open source companies, I can give some examples. You might have heard of a company called Red Hat, which is a software business designed to sort of support and scale the Linux project, which is the largest, kind of most successful open source project on the internet in the technology world. Linux is an operating system, and so it runs your computers mostly on the data center side. Sort of runs the data center side of computing, as opposed to sort of consumer machines that run Windows and Mac and consumer operating systems. And so Red Hat is the most popular open source business, but many other companies have also been inspired by their approach to create a capitalist sort of business model based on the sort of the open source core technology. And so you build enterprise products, consumer products, and help the customer really solve production problems, sell security solutions, additional enhancements around the open source. And so this business model is kind of considered commercial open source or open core. And I've been building sort of the world's first venture capital fund focused exclusively on open source startups and open source businesses. And I've been kind of in that world for the better part of almost 15 years in terms of my career, but my fund has been around for about 7 years, a little over 7 years.
The size of the fund? To give an indication, what is the size of the fund, if you're able to disclose?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we manage, I guess, in terms of our overall portfolio, it's about $1 billion. In terms of the the value of the portfolio, it's about 70 companies, and I'm the sort of the solo GP of the fund, so it kind of built the portfolio over the last 7 years. So when I learned about Bittensor, I was quite skeptical originally. I'm not a cryptocurrency or Web3 investor or founder, and so it really took me some time to develop a strong point of view and to have conviction around the potential of Bittensor and sort of what it would represent. And I guess the way I would describe Bittensor is less of a Web3 or crypto category technology, and I would say it's more of and a sort of upgrade to the way we think about capitalism. And the analogy I think that's really helpful to sort of build on is with Bitcoin. And the founders of Bittensor were actually, interestingly, also not cryptocurrency, sort of Web3 sort of people. They were actually AI researchers and machine learning.
Yeah.
Machine learning developers.
Yeah.
So the sort of the core founder, Jacob Steves, was former Google Brain software engineer, and the other co-founder was an AI computer science researcher, professor, PhD postdoc at the University of Waterloo in Canada. And so they both met and sort of had a similar vision about how you could use a decentralized and permissionless blockchain substrate for allowing basically software to be created in a permissionless and decentralized, but also incentivized way. And the first category of computation that was really heavily associated with Bittensor was sort of AI-related computation. So you can train machine learning models. You can serve them if there's inference. You can generate training data. So AI is really, three things. You have the training data, which the models need to represent information and data. You have compute, which you need to sort of run the training models. And then you have the sort of the language of the representation of the data, which is the algorithms. And so sort of how do you define the math that encodes the data? So data, compute, algorithms is basically AI, but those are sort of three independent, almost independent fields of science and computing. And so when you integrate them, it is a fairly complex domain. And so what a lot of people think of Bittensor is sort of like decentralized AI or decentralized machine learning, when in fact, it's actually decentralized, permissionless, and incentivized innovation and capitalism.
Yeah.
And so there's many categories.
Elias was saying that earlier as well. Like, I'm interested in these use cases that, are not only focused on the artificial intelligence part of this narrative, which, we're embracing, and it's very current, but I think it's a very good insight. Please continue.
Yes. Yeah. So for me, I come from the open source universe, and I have sort of like a deep passion and interest in seeing open source succeed. I think the thing that your audience should know, and anyone that's kind of building technology and sort of a founder in the technology world sort of intrinsically knows, is open source is really the basis for the entire technology industry. Without things like Linux and open source programming languages like Java, C, C++, and open source databases and things like this, the entire technology industry would not exist. So Google would not have been able to be created. Amazon would not have been able to be created. Facebook, and so on and so forth. And so open source was really this innovation paradigm, or this licensing model, really rights framework, really that allowed for extremely fast rate innovation to occur on the internet. And the way I think of Bittensor is really as a sort of next phase of open source. It's as a sort of like an upgrade to open source. And for people to sort of like have a simple understanding of how open source actually works, it is a non-mechanistic or sort of honor system, trust system for giving rights to technology, essentially, right? So like you create software and you give it an open source license. And what that does is it sort of intrinsically incentivizes people to have a very strong desire to improve the technology very rapidly, and to transparently see how the technology works. They can trust it more. And it also allows them to modify and contribute to the software in a holistic sense. And this is mostly related to source codes, software source code. And so open source has been extremely successful as a result of that framework.
Yeah.
What Bittensor does is it applies a mechanistic reward system
exactly
to those same principles, but instead of just being relegated to software source code, to the notion of computer programming code, which is what open source is about, it actually abstracts those types of concepts to any digital commodity. And instead of just saying you can have permissionless, incentivized, and decentralized innovation sort of as a framework for just software, you can now have those properties for literally anything that is a real world physical commodity or digital commodity that does not have those properties. And you can sort of transform it into something that has permissionlessness that is intrinsically incentivized and extrinsically incentivized, which is like you actually have a measurable reward for the contribution of the work that you give to the technology process. Obviously, with Bittensor, this is possible because we have a cryptocurrency that is measured and is valuable. And you use free market capitalism to basically express and modulate the value of that currency. And so, which is kind of TAOs. TAOs like the reserve currency of Bittensor. And then each one of these subnets is sort of a user specified or a user generated competition for a specific type of digital commodity. And so we have 100 subnets now, over 100 subnets. Last I checked, I think about 107 or 108. When I learned about Bittensor, there were 0 subnets. There was like 1 subnet, which was like the root subnet of the network. And then in late 2023, the protocol sort of evolved to support this notion of subnets. And really in the last 6 months, there's just been an exponential increase in adoption of this idea of subnets. And the sort of the top 10 subnets, you can really see an incredible amount of experimentation and evolution of this general paradigm. And so I think there's 3 main categories of subnets, just to kind of have a sense of how the network works. There's computing inference, which is where you reward miners or developers who contribute compute, and they contribute models and algorithms that run that enable people to run these machine learning, these LLMs, these AI models more accurately, more reliably, more performantly. And that's the number 1 subnet actually on the network. That's kind of inference token generation related. And subnet 64, it's called shoots. And just to give people an example of how powerful the Bittensor language is to incentivize permissionlessly in a decentralized way this type of digital commodity. Shoots is currently serving almost 2 trillion AI tokens or LLM tokens on a monthly basis. This is from 0 and 6 months. Just for context, so people can understand how profound this is. Microsoft, in their earnings call, actually a couple weeks ago, their CFO, Amy Hood, as the CFO of Microsoft, announced that Microsoft is serving about 50 trillion tokens per month.
Yeah.
And that's grown about 5 times over the last quarter from Q2 2024. Yeah. So one subnet on Bittensor has reached around 5% of the overall tokens that Microsoft is producing, which, by the way, I think actually also includes OpenAI's numbers, because Microsoft owns about half of OpenAI. And
okay, that metric includes it.
This is an enormous amount of technology innovation and production by a system that has spent $0 on capital expense, on massive human costs, data center chips, and infrastructure. Meanwhile, if you contrast that to Microsoft, they're spending about $80 billion per year in actually scaling that infrastructure. And obviously, it's owned only by Microsoft and the Microsoft shareholders. So in some sense, you could say, well, if you buy the Microsoft stock, you'll sort of have permissionless, incentive exposure to those types of innovations. The reality is Microsoft is a huge company at this point, and most of the value has really been captured. With Bittensor, it's permissionless and incentivized from the very beginning. And so anyone really has a chance to participate in this and actually benefit from the value creation. And to go from 0 to 5% of the the amount of tokens served in 6 months, where in the case of Microsoft, it took them a few years and many tens of billions of dollars. This is a really profoundly successful example of how powerful Bittensor is. There are many other examples of subnets that are similarly, what I would say was be capital efficient. They're very capital efficient examples of innovation. I'll talk about our subnet briefly if you're curious. Like
I'll just have the heads. We're like from a timing perspective, I think we should do a separate deep dive, but we'll have to keep it slightly brief. But please, please.
Just one other example, just maybe in a minute or less. We created a subnet called TAO Hash, which is subnet 14.
Yeah.
And it's actually not related to AI or decentralized machine learning. It's related to a different kind of computation, which is decentralizing the Bitcoin hash rate. Yeah. And so Bitcoin has cryptographic hash as its competition, SHA-256 hash rate. And Bitcoin has grown to obviously become a $2 trillion asset, and very important for the world. Actually, Bittensor was very inspired by and designed after Bitcoin in terms of the fundamental design. We created subnet 14 TAO Hash to incentivize miners to actually decentralize the Bitcoin hash rate, because today there's actually only 2 mining pools for the Bitcoin hash rate that represent more than 50% of the Bitcoin hash rate. One is in the United States, the other one is in China. And so our goal with TAO Hash is to actually decentralize the Bitcoin hash rate. And in less than a month, we launched the subnet a few weeks ago. We actually briefly reached almost 1% of the entire Bitcoin rate. This is around a couple $100 million worth of compute infrastructure that would be needed to produce that hash rate. We spent $0 on that, and we have people all over the world basically.
Do you know where the interest comes from? Is it like I guess it's organic, but do you actually know all right, well, no, you are
we have very interesting attribute of permissionlessness, which is similar with Bitcoin. It's similar with shoots and many of these other subnets. I think the or you don't talk to them, you don't interact with them. We do have a Discord server. Sometimes they reveal their identity, sometimes they tell us who they are. But it is a very permissionless, decentralized system, and it basically encourages this type of innovation around the world. And in fact, very similar to how open source works. In open source, you often do not know who the contributors are. They create a pseudonymous identity, or maybe fully anonymous, and really they're just incentivized all around the world to sort of contribute to what you're doing.
Awesome. I do think we need to cut it there for today, but I love to have a follow on that one. And I think especially those metrics, both for TAO Hash and obviously Shoots, the example that you gave, probably has, the people that are just now tuning in and learning about Bittensor probably blown their minds. As I think all of us in the TAO ecosystem for what TAO Hash just did in this amazingly short period of time. So I want to thank you so much for joining, JJ. We need to move on to the official part of the Q report. We switched it around so everybody could jump right into all the TAO presentations. But thank you so much, and I hope to speak again.
Thank you for having me, David. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And good night. He's pretty sharp for someone who's like keeping up that late. And JJ is a beast. He just, he just keeps at it. I think the pace of the way he's innovating is tremendous. So that concludes our TAO part of this presentation. I hope for those first learning about TAO got a broad understanding or like an initial understanding about what Bittensor is about, why we at Safello are excited about it, and why we've made the decision on the TAO treasury, and our commitment to this ecosystem. And with that, I would like to thank all the viewers here and hand it over to our CEO, Emily Moritz, for the Q report, and our head of finance, Victoria Blomé. We'll do a timeout first.
And we're live. Hi, everyone. Great to see so many on our stream for the Q1 earnings call. I'm Emily Moritz, CEO of Safello, and with me today I have Victoria. I will present her a bit in a couple of minutes when we're going through like the deep dive of the financials of the Q report. It's been great to see the engagement that we've had the past week on our kind of pivot and dipping the toe in our new strategy for getting closer to decentralized AI and in specifically the Bittensor ecosystem. I think for me, like Bittensor with its blockchain-based protocol, incentivizing all the participants to build open source decentralized AI models of machine learning it's really mind-blowing. And the tokenomics of it, what I like about it is that it resembles the ones of Bitcoin with the cap of 21 million, halving every 4 years, launched with the Genesis block, no pre-mine. So it really resonates with our values that we have at Safello. And we'll get back to that a bit later, how the next step in the decentralized AI strategy. But first of all, we're going to talk about the Q1 report. Q1 was, it was a challenging quarter because the crypto market was pretty flat. I think Bitcoin went from around top $100,000 to around 82 in the end of the quarter. So that, of course, impacted the activity amongst our customers, which it always does. It's a pattern that we see a lot. However, having said that, like we had 9% decrease in orders, we had 1% increase in turnover, which kind of confirms the pattern that we've started to see the past 4 or 5 quarters, that the customers that are active, they are actually placing larger orders. We've also taken a lot of cost when it comes to implementing the MiCA regulation, the DORA regulation. It's the gift that keeps on giving almost. But we filed our application to the SFSA to become a regulated crypto asset service provider. Thorough application, I think. More than 1,000 pages were filed. So a lot of work has gone into that. Kudos to the legal team as a fellow, of course, Helium. So that is a bit of a highlight, but it also really, we can also see the impact and the result of the cost that we've taken there together with downwriting of the crypto assets. But Victoria will guide you more through the financials soon. Let's see. I have a clicker here. Yeah, this is our mission, Next Generation Crypto Bank. For everyone of you who doesn't know Safello, we are a company publicly listed on Nasdaq First North, ticker SFL. We've been around for 12 and a half years, which is pretty amazing since we started as a crypto company. And so we were very early. We always had a mindset of being the Safello, compliant, friendly towards users. We're banked by a Swedish bank. We're the only crypto company in Nordics banked by a Swedish bank with the direct access to the banking infrastructure, the instant payment system. And as a feather in the hat, we also once won a public procurement. So we have onboarded the Police Authority, the Border and Customs Authority, and the Economic Crime Authority as customers to our platform. So maybe they will hold some TAO later. I don't know. Us in numbers, we have 404,000 users. We serve 5 institutional clients. And these are some of the numbers of our processed volumes of so far. Core product, it's really evolving right now in the product side, and I will get into that more later. But yeah, you know, traditional financial crypto infrastructure that we're now evolving to become a crypto bank for everyone to use in a safe way. The quarter in review. Summary of the quarter. So we started actually the quarter with entering into an agreement with Talos, which we've built our real-time order book on. So Talos is making us is enabling basically smarter routing software system, so we can really ensure that our customers get like best execution on all the orders. We've also entered into another agreement with a liquidity provider, just to ensure that we have like the best liquidity for the orders that our customers are executing. What else have we done? We've seen a need to diversify revenue streams. And I know I get a lot of questions from shareholders about this. So we've been thinking a lot about it, and that's how and why we created the ETP, the equity traded product, 100% backed by Bitcoin, that will list on Nasdaq during Q2. And it's based on another model. There we earn a fee from the assets under management, whereas in our core product, we earn a fee of customers being very actively trading. We launched a new trading platform in the beginning of April, so none of those that trading isn't visible in the results for Q1. Yeah, I think that is kind of the highlights from the quarter. And of course, we're looking now at launching a third revenue stream, where we will build product based upon decentralized AI models. So if the first part of our kind of decentralized AI strategy was starting to DCA into TAO on the treasury side, the next one will be to build actual products and participate in the ecosystem to really support it. So both spread knowledge about it, invest in it, but also build with it. And I think with that, here's the ETP. So this is going to be launched in Q2. And I think, this is the distributors. It's launched on Nasdaq Stockholm, but it will be available across other jurisdictions as well. And I also brought in some of the product slides of the new trading platform, the new dark mode. It looks amazing. It works amazing. And soon we'll have it on desktop as well. We also did a new top-up function for USDC to enable a super smooth on-ramp with the instant payment system, Swish, that we're connected to. And about 2 weeks ago, we also decided to slice the fee of USDC on-ramp. So now we can on-ramp USDC for only 0.49%. And it's worth noting that the order book, the trading is it's very low price, at 40-60 bips, make it take a fee. There we go, financials.
Thank you, Emily. So yes, I'm Victoria, Head of Finance at Safello. And as Emily has touched upon, this quarter has been particularly challenging, but it's also important to highlight that Q1 and Q4 last year was Safello's strongest quarter in the history. So what we're comparing against is also particularly best results that we've done. And if we look at the numbers, the turnover has increased 1% compared to the same period last year, while the gross profit has decreased by 37%. And with this, the crypto market at large has a significant impact due to our operating crypto and a negative inventory effect. So the impact from that on gross profit is around roughly 4 million. Also, what impacted is that we didn't have any capital gain from selling long-term crypto holdings in the first quarter this year, which we did last year. Also, due to the crypto market and declining prices, it also impacts our withdrawal fees. So that also contributed quite a lot, around 0.9 million SEK. Of course, this also that we've announced previously, the increased cost base due to manage all the strategic investment we're doing in our platform to accelerate the growth and speed in everything we do, and also the regulatory requirements that we face at the moment. That has also impact on our EBITDA at the moment. And And if we look at the quarterly order volume distribution over the years, we see that Q1 is in line with the same periods in prior years. And this is due to also average order volumes increasing, and we see that trend stays. While looking at the quarterly number of orders, that is a trend that we don't want to see, and we are doing the launch of the order book is something that we expect to increase the activity amongst our customers to turn this trend around. Looking at our cash position, it has decreased from Q4 when it was around 40 million, and now it's 33 million. The biggest impact here comes from the long-term crypto holdings that has decreased, while we see that the Q1 cash position is similar to Q1 in last year. Also want to highlight that we are doing mitigation measures to decrease the volatility between the quarters that we've seen, and that is something that we will be able to do now when we've connected to Talos, connected to multiple liquidity providers with different agreements and arrangements through them. That allows us to not pre-fund all our customers' trading, which we've done with our own inventory. So we won't be as sensitive. We expect this to see effect from it now in Q2, when we will decrease our operating crypto. So it will have impact and not as volatile between the quarters due to the inventory effect. And this also just shows the acquisition value of our long-term crypto holdings compared to the market value at the end of the quarter. And as probably most of you know, Bitcoin price has increased again now in Q2, but this was what it was looking like in Q1, end of Q1. And yeah, Emily, I don't know if you want to comment a little bit more about our reallocation and the strategic reasoning behind that.
We had a whole Bittensor TAO theme today. So we've been exploring the space for some time now and really dug into the tokenomics of TAO, and it just made a lot of sense for us to start with our decentralized, to lean into decentralized AI by reallocating from Bitcoin to TAO. And as I mentioned in the beginning, the tokenomics are very similar to Bitcoin. But the main difference is that participants are incentivized to truly build high quality AI models and machine learning, which resonates a lot with us. So we did this shift last week, and we announced it this week. And we have never really seen so much traction on Safello in social media. And we realized that this is a strategic step where we can be an alpha mover going forward and really lean into what we think will be one of the biggest shifts in technology in the coming decades. Hence the reallocation. And we have announced that we have a DCA strategy, dollar cost average. You don't go all in at one price point. So we're trying to leverage out a few of the purchases. There I am. I think it was very well received, and we're proud to be an alpha mover and doing this reallocation. So stay tuned for more updates on that, basically. And now there's some Q&A, but maybe I can take some questions.
We will go for just a quick break.
Okay, we will soon be back with a call with our analyst, Rasmus, who will be joining live, putting us up the wall with difficult questions, so you don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. And we're back. Hi, everyone. We're back with our analyst, Rasmus Jacobsson from Redeye. Rasmus, have you read the report?
Hosting me, let me ask you some challenging questions, I guess. Do you want me to just get going?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Well, to start off with the core product, I know that Q1 has been a challenging market with generally crypto prices falling. But like, what has the response from your customers been through the different initiatives that you have made with the order book and expanding the coin offering and so forth?
I mean, generally, it's been a good response, absolutely. Now it's about increasing retention for the usage of the order book. And of course, the order book was launched in the beginning of April, so it's really hard to say right now, but the response has been good. The product is great at the moment. We see an increase in user activity every time we launch coins, which I think I've told you before. So that is something we see as like our customers really appreciate that. And when it comes to customer feedback, the single most common negative feedback from our customers that we really try to take into account are pricing. And of course, like you as an analyst, you look at our numbers, you see it's expensive to run like a compliant, safe platform with all the financial infrastructure that we have that is unique to Safello. But we've listened to the customers, so we've priced the order book at a really competitive pricing if you look at an international perspective. So we priced it at 40 bips and 60 bips on make it take a fee. And last week we also went out and lowered the fees for stable coin on-ramps to 0.49%. So we are really addressing the feedback we're getting for the customers. I mean, we build the product for the customers. Without them, we don't have a business to run on. So, but the feedback from Q1 has in general been good. Good, yeah. But I look forward to hear more feedback as the retention increases in the order book in the coming weeks.
All right, that's great. And with the reduction in fees, I know you worked a lot with your liquidity providers and so forth. So is there any indication you can give us of how we should think about like your gross margin going forward? Should we still expect that to go down, or do you think you can sustain the current level of gross margin?
I'll answer, then you can chime in, Victoria, perhaps. So what we think is, I mean, for us, we're basically now serving two types of orders. So one is the on-ramp from fiat to crypto, where we still have like the old pricing, except from USDC. So there we will still remain the margins. However, the fact that our margins has decreased somewhat the previous year, like the last 4 or 5 quarters, is due to an increased COGS. And the COGS we're really getting down now by having lower spreads at liquidity providers, and it's something we're always working on to get the COGS down, because it's also tied to the financial infrastructure that we have to be able to offer this flexibility to the customers. But then as an add-on, we have the order book. So the order book should rather be seen as like an added-on kind of revenue stream in terms of trading, and not cannibalizing on the fiat to crypto conversion. Victoria?
Yes, and also just that what we want to avoid is this significant impact from the inventory change, that gross margin can vary a lot between the quarters. The gross margin is also very tight connected to the proportions between buy, sell, and withdrawal fees. So it is based very dependent on our customer behaviors, but for the trading that we've had itself, we don't expect it to decrease or withdrawal fees decrease or so on. But there are also some factors in there that with the crypto market that we can't really control ourselves. Of course, we can always do price changes to the withdrawal fees. We have revisited them to align with the current price of Bitcoin and so on. But there are many factors in the gross margin, so to speak.
All right, got it. And you have talked about your ETP offering that is in the works, launching in 2Q, I think you said in the presentation.
Yeah.
Is there any targets that you can share with us? Like, what do you hope to achieve in terms of AUM and so forth?
I mean, it's of course we're looking at competitors in the market. For the first year, we hope to achieve around 750 million in AUM, and it should be noted that we are break even on a AUM of around 110 million. So it's a very beneficial product for like an added revenue stream. So, but of course, this field is also growing, and the competition there is also growing, and you kind of need to have a very diligent marketing strategy to get distribution. You can't just like ring the bell and then leave, because you need to work with investors, and so we're working on two parallel tracks there, both on the retail adoption, of course, but also institutional adoption of the ETP. Having said that, these are only estimates, and it's really hard to now calculate the financial impact since we haven't launched yet. But we're aiming at having a proof of reserves for the ETP, so all our investors and customers and so forth, so on, can follow the change in AUM. So that can be like a real time live update on how it's going for the Bitcoin ETP. And then of course we are planning on quickly, as soon as the first ETP is listed, to come up with a couple of more products in the market, and really create a product suite for financial products that are backed with Safello. They have our quality stamp and proof and proof of approval on, because we know that the Swedish investors, they also like to, I mean, we see that a lot of them do spot trading, which they can do with us. But since we have the beneficial tax account, ISK capital insurance, we know that this is also what the customer wants, and we want to be where the customers are.
All right, that's great. And can you share any details with how you're thinking about in terms of the fee structure and how that is split between you and your partner?
Not at this moment. I can't, but we will share more when we get closer to launch. But the fee structure with the partner that is issuing the product, it's both like fixed fee on an annual basis, and it's a variable fee. But it should be noted that the variable fee is capped. So, the upside is really in Safello's favor.
All right, and now you're speaking about your partners, like the fee you pay to the partner, right?
Correct.
And not the fee for the product.
Correct.
Okay, that's great. And I just wanted to make sure, I think it said in the press release that DDA will be the issuer and so forth. Does that mean that if the agreement is terminated, that they control the AUM and the end customer, or do you have any voice in that?
Yeah, so they're the issuer, but we are doing this as a joint collaboration. So there is no reason for the agreement to be terminated, but then we would move the agreement to another issuer or issue it ourselves. So we own the rights of like the product and the labeling and the AUM. Yeah.
All right, that's great. And in terms of the Mika application, I think you said you sent it in April.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share any details of when you expect a response from that and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's happening in this type of licensing processes is that the SFSA first do a formal check to see like is the application complete, and then you get feedback on that, and then once it's complete, they do a material check, like do you comply with the regulation? And according to the timeline that they've communicated, we hope to have both the formal check quite soon done, and then the material check, get feedback on that sometime midsummer. Not midsummer, but in the middle of the summer, so around July, mid-July. And then anticipate to receive the application in August, September. It all depends. I mean, it's the first time the SFSA is dealing with these types of application because it's a completely new regulation across the EU, and it's new for everyone who's applying and for all the advisors. So it's a bit peculiar situation. However, I remain very hopeful, and I am extremely proud that we have taken the measures that we have taken, built the infrastructure and the corporate governance with quality that I personally really can stand behind. So I am very positive that we'll have a good result of the application. But those are more or less the timelines.
All right, that's great. And we know that the Swedish SFCA has been very anti-crypto and very vocal about it. Like, what do you deem the risk or chance that that they just deny all the applications, regardless of how valid they are?
That would be illegal to start with because they need to comply themselves with the regulation. So yeah, just to confirm, like they are skeptic, and they've had that approach for years. But still, they are, they follow the law. I have a high hope that they are complying with the rules that they need to comply with, that they are bureaucratic and look at it objectively. Because I think it's also in the SFSA, in Swedish Finansinspektionen, in their greatest interest to have a mature player in this market serving Swedish customers. So that's in the interest of the FSA because they also have client protection, conflict of interest, etc. as one of the most important missions that they are caring about.
All right, that's great. And you mentioned in the report that you're considering or you are planning on launching a third business segment related to the AI, decentralized AI thesis that you have talked about today.
Yes.
Can you share more details about what exactly are you planning on doing?
I can't go into specifics on that, but we have seen a need to increase the number of revenue streams across the board of the company. And for us, why we are even in the crypto industry is because we have believed in its mission and we believe in the technology. So the same kind of revelation has come to us when it comes to decentralized AI that will be one of the most important shifts in technology in the coming decades. So naturally evolves a third business leg from that where we will focus on building products and software. But as I communicated in my CEO letter of the Q1 report, but I won't be able to comment much more on that for now. But yeah, sorry, Rasmus.
All right, I think we will learn as we go, I guess. And you have spent a lot of time talking about Bittensor today. That is your latest investment. Like what? I'm trying to get the sense, like how much time does management spend on evaluating these types of investments versus like expanding the core product portfolio that you have?
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid and good question. Of course, as you've seen, our chairman Frank has been leading the whole stream. So when it comes to the investment of the strategic crypto reserve that we hold, that is happening on board level. So the board is active there, contributing, evaluating. We have amazing people on the board that are covering different parts of the crypto space and the technological space as well, for that matter. So, of course, we do our homework, we do our research. A big part of running such a company is about catching up with the market. What is happening in the market and how can we be a part of it and catch momentum and stay relevant for the future? That is our mission. Our mission is for us to be on the forefront of new technologies and stay relevant. So, of course, we spend time on that. But I wouldn't say it's at a cost of core business development. I would not say it's everything is a part of leading this company.
All right, that's great to hear. And like you have voiced ambitions of becoming a crypto bank, and there are other players in the industry that also talking about wanting to become more of a crypto institution. And still, like the whole the listed space in Sweden, at least, like all the brokers are fairly small, and the runway seems to be quite large in just expanding the core offering. So I'm just curious about like what why the rush to become a bank, like a crypto bank, instead of developing what you already have?
when we say crypto bank, we want to operate in this intersection between decentralized finance and traditional finance, which we have already been doing since we started the company. Basically, the on-ramp fiat to crypto is such an intersection. What we want to do is include more traditional financial services in the platform to add value for customers, to add stickiness. I can also, there are many customers of ours and of our competitors that have been discriminated from their bank, that has been debanked because they are deemed high risk because they once traded with crypto. So we want to offer an alternative, like a democratic alternative for people to be able to have a proper bank account. And we have the knowledge to do proper KYC on this customer because we know the space, we know crypto. So it's more about adding value to customers and increasing the customer experience, the product suite, and with that we also grow our revenue and volume. So it's all part of growing the volume in our platform. But having said that, creating a crypto bank, it's hard. But I believe doing what's hard, that's what's going to make us win in the end. So yeah.
All right, and then a final question for me:
Yeah.
like, what has the response been from the Tensor acquisition? Like, have the Bittensor acquisition have like how has investors responded to this? Have they been positive, or do they think it's dilutive to the equity story? It becomes more complicated to understand the core business versus your other investments. Like, what have they been telling you?
They have been telling. It's been like the general feedback has been enormously positive. We have been celebrated on various social medias for taking this bold move and really becoming an alpha mover in a space that we think have the opportunity to emerge enormously. So the general ecosystem of Bittensor has been very supportive, and I see posts on X saying, "I'm going to buy this share because this mindset resonates with me." So we've seen a lot of new interest for the company, which in general is good. I believe current shareholders that has been with us for a long time, they trust that we know what we do. And a part of investing in a company like Safello is investing in the people running it, to look at it, to look at the market, to see what's happening, what's evolving, and be at the forefront of what's happening. So I haven't seen any negative feedback, and to be clear, we have reallocated an investment or two investments from Bitcoin. So we've sold 2 Bitcoins and bought TAO, and so yeah, it's not that we have taken from the cash position. We have done a reallocation, and if you look at it, I mean, I'm not supposed to give any recommendation, but I think the potential in TAO is enormous, and on a percentual basis, it can actually outcompete Bitcoin in the nearest year.
All right. Like, I'm just trying to get a sense of why would anybody invest in Safello to get the TAO exposure rather than just investing in TAO, if you know what I mean. Like, what edge do you think you bring here?
Yeah, I mean, we are also shining a big light to the Bittensor ecosystem. And not only are we accumulating TAO, but we're also spreading the word. Frank is being somewhat of an evangelist, if you so may, but we're educating. And of course, we have a lot of customers, more than 400,000 customers, a lot of shareholders. We're a publicly listed company. So we can really go out there, educate about what we think is one of the most important technological shifts that is about to come. So it's both being a supporter to the ecosystem as well as the accumulation of TAO as the first step in this strategy. So and then people who resonate with that, they have expressed a will to actually, for this sole reallocation, buy shares as Safello.
All right, that's great. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasmus. Great to have you. Maybe yeah. All right. We've had a long stream today, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I did. I still do, I guess. It's been great. I think this format was very good to be able to really go through like what we're doing, what we have been doing in the past quarter, shine some light on the numbers for everyone who are invested in the Safello stock in the company, or for those of you who want to be. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for listening and engaging. We're always here. We are on X. We're online almost 24/7. Cryptocurrency never sleeps. So no, we get some sleep sometimes. Good, cool. Thank you, Victoria. Great work. Okay, bye everyone.